The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Whitting.
Imagine the surprise and stress of having an NDE, a near-death experience. Now imagine the additional stress for a soldier wounded in battle who has an NDE. Someone coming back from Vietnam, Iraq, or Afghanistan. How would this add to or diminish their PTSD? Our guest today is Diane Corcoran. Diane is president of IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and she is with us today because I wanted to talk to her, first of all, about IANDS and a little of the history of that, and then go on to look at some of her work with veterans, because she's been involved in teaching healthcare professionals about NDEs for over 40 years, and also has worked with veterans. Dr. Corcoran is a retired colonel in the Army Nurse Corps. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning, Lee.
How are you?
I'm great. It's nice to be with you this morning.
Well, it's been too long because as president of IANDS, since this is IANDS' show, we really should have had you on earlier than this, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say.
We won't mention it.
Diane, tell the audience a little about the history of IANDS and how you got involved in it.
Well, IANDS started out in the mid-'70s with some physicians and John Audette, Raymond Moody, Bruce Grayson, Michael Sabon, and Ken Ring. Basically, it started as a group of physicians who wanted to look at the research. Ken Ring was doing research at the University of Connecticut, and, of course, Raymond was writing his book, and all of those things came together about the same time. And then Ken Ring opened an office at the University of Connecticut. Nancy Bush, who is also a past president and recent author, worked in that office. And they started getting a lot of calls, so the support piece of IANDS started coming in, people calling, needing information and support. So as IANDS developed, it developed into an organization that was really threefold. One, to educate the community and the healthcare professionals, two, to do research, and certainly to support near-death experiencers. I got involved because in 1969, way back before there was any mention of near-death experiences, I was in Vietnam, and a young soldier in the middle of the night wanted to tell me about this experience he had. And I had no idea what he was talking about. It was a pretty classic near-death experience, but he was so emotional and so afraid that I wouldn't believe him. And of course, I could do nothing except tell him that I believed him. And I sort of tucked it away as I knew it was important, but didn't have any information at that time. So that was my first encounter, and then over the years, I got more involved, and in 1981, IANDS became a formal organization, and I've been on and off the board. I was a past president as well, and still here today trying to help teach healthcare professionals and grow IANDS and reach out to people. We know there are millions of people out there that need support, and we're trying to do that. And I'm particularly interested in the veterans because these folks are really isolated in many ways because they're not likely to get a great deal of support it'll be tossed off as PTSD, and of course that's not what they need. They certainly don't need drugs, and they need somebody just to listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. PTSD is an interesting disease, and they've come up with some mechanical ways of treating it. But the insights that you gain from a near-death experience, I would think, if it were properly understood by the person that had it, would be very reassuring and comforting to them.
I think it would be wonderful. I actually went to a veterans hospital some years ago and asked the chief of psychiatry how they would differentiate between a person who came in and was having a near-death experience and a young person who had a psychotic break. Because somebody might come in and say, I died, I went to heaven, and I saw God. I did have a soldier tell me that one time. And the answer I got was, what's a near-death experience? So that clues you in on where the military was. I'd like to think it's better today, but I'm not sure it is with all the things that they have going on. And, of course, the after effects of the near-death experience would make it really difficult for the experiencer to continue in the military and just in general, mixed with all the other issues they have.
Well, so many lives are now being saved on the battlefield. I mean, there's so many walking wounded coming home now where in previous wars they probably would have died. So there probably is a much higher incidence of near-death experiences as well.
That's certainly my feeling. I was recently did a talk down in San Antonio at the Brooke Army Medical Center, and the number of amputees that were just rolling around the hospital was unbelievable. And I'm sure that many, I think that if our percent of a normal population is between 20 and 40%, then I would think the military is much higher. Because you also have those soldiers who had a lot of TBIs, and these traumatic brain injuries are sort of the invisible injuries because many of them don't remember the incident. And I have a specific soldier. He and his best friend lost both legs. He had a TBI. He does not remember anything about the incident and accident. They had hit an IUD. But he has classic after effects of a near-death experience.
Tell the audience some of those classic after effects.
Well, they become more altruistic, they less materialistic, have a problem with violence, really want to move to different careers, many of them, and very connected with nature, maybe have more allergies. There's a whole set of characteristics, but a lot of them are around certainly nonviolence, attention to nature, being much more altruistic in their professions. And so a lot of those things don't hook up with combat.
No. Would they be more likely to be disqualified for their post after they healed?
Well,
in other words, would the Army take these new characteristics into account and say,
oh, no.
Well, you don't seem to fit here anymore?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that this is part of the problem, is most of them are not going to tell their healthcare providers that they have these after effects. And many times they won't recognize them themselves. And one of the soldiers I know, he breaks down and very teary-eyed, at times very emotional, has outbursts, is so focused on doing good for others, And I mean, these come on kind of slowly sometimes, and so they don't know that they didn't remember having an experience that was special, and so they might not recognize these after effects. And most people aren't well read on this, although it is on television most of the times now.
Yes, it's become a lot more popular topic for discussion on TV and in fiction and so forth. I was just thinking
they don't talk about the after effects very often. Even the TV programs talk about the other stuff, but they don't talk about the after effects.
That's true. I had a question, and it just went right out of my head. I know what it was. I'm thinking, being a chaplain myself, do you think any of the military chaplains have been trained to any extent in NDEs and the effects they can have on the military?
Well, I know at one point when I was on active duty, I actually used to train all the Army chaplains on near-death experiences. And I have given programs several times to the Navy and that was coordinated by the chaplains, but I don't think there's any formal training now. I'm not sure who's doing the training. I think it's sort of left to their own device to really be up to speed on that.
I wonder if there's some way that we could connect with the chaplaincy service of the military branches in a more formal way and let them know more about this subject of NDEs. Seems like it would be a good step forward.
Well, it's something we can really try. I think the best step would be to get a chaplain to try to make the lead in, maybe you or Douglas. Douglas and I tried to do a talk to a national chaplain's program, but that they weren't ready to hear it or whatever. We didn't get selected this year. But we could see if he could, or you try to, and I could work with you on that. It's certainly, it's a great idea. It's a very hard nut to crack these days, getting into the military. We went through a terrible, just bunches of red tape trying to get into the Brooke Army Medical Center. And where I really wanted to get into was the Intrepid organization down there, where all the soldiers who are rehabbing are, and there's just no way they will let you in and talk about this. Which is really, really a shame, because there's so much self-healing and I think support that could come from them understanding that half of their feelings and after effects, see, they're many times so emotional. And then there's the question of the spouses. The family doesn't know what to do. They've already got a different person than they sent into war due to the number of rotations they had and PTSD and physical injuries. And you add an NDE on top of it when the soldier themselves don't understand it. And it creates a really difficult situation, and I think we could do great things to be supportive of that if we could find a way to provide support. We keep outreaching from IANDS, and one of these days the right environment or person is going to break loose. We were able to invite the commander of the VFW post in Texas to one of our talks, and she was a nurse. She was, this is really important. Didn't know anything about it. Boy. So, there's still hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people out there who, even though it's been on every TV program and written 100 times now, that still don't know what it is.
Well, there's a chaplains association that perhaps, I know Doug, we're talking about Douglas Suggs, who's a member of the IANDS board.
Yeah.
And he's associated with them. There might be material that we could get to them that would also be disseminated to the military chaplains.
Yes,
from there.
Yes. We can certainly, we have brochures about combat NDEs, and we have material that we could give them just to introduce them and help them get people to the right place. As you know, so often we get new experiencers to come to our conference, and it's like they finally found a home, somebody that understands them. They don't have to explain everything, and it's a new life for them.
Yes. Well, I certainly felt that way at the first conference, IANDS conference I attended. I should mention to the audience that if they have any questions out there for Diane, the number to call is 888-463-6748. Diane, what do you think about perhaps doing one of our conferences centered around the military or the needs of the veterans?
I think it would be a great idea if we could get the military to participate. Mm-hmm. It would take, we could certainly invite military chaplains and soldiers, sailors, and airmen. We could invite people, but one of the things that we ran into before is because of the current war and all the circumstances that are going on, they have no money for travel, so there's no possibility of getting money for them to travel, for this. And they said it was just very, very difficult to go anywhere, which was really a shame because that's how they get most of their information is through different kinds of meetings and, training programs. It would be interesting to try to maybe put on a small conference that we could do, and not so elaborate, a one-day one, someplace close to a military base. And that might be a possibility, and maybe we're supposed to go to Texas in 2015. That might be the time to do it near Fort Sam.
Yes. That would be excellent. I found as a chaplain in a hospital that stories of near-death experience have been very powerful tools for comforting people who do not have a strong religious background. And I'm sure, as I see fewer and fewer people attending church, I'm sure that's going to be more and more the case in the general population and also in the military population. And it worries me sometimes when I think about their phasing out chaplaincy because most people think of chaplains as being related to denominational or interdenominational teaching. And as people stop going to church, they may see less of a need for chaplains, whereas in fact there should be more of a need for chaplains.
Exactly.
And
very, very helpful for understanding, and they're open to talking about it and learning about it, and very supportive in the programs that I've done for the Navy and the Army. Mm. When I was on active duty, I taught this everywhere I went, and I was at Fort Sam at the primary education facility. So every course that came through there and every program that was taught for a number of years that I was associated with, somehow or another I phased near-death experiences into the curriculum. Maybe not always appropriately, but I was determined to get it in there one way or another. And we have put out a call for, please, if there are soldiers out there, vets, get in touch with us. If this is something you've had, we would like to build a cadre of near-death experiencers who are veterans or active duty.
That's right. IANDS has local organizations throughout the country, and if some of them be focused on drawing vets who've had NDEs into the mix, that probably would be very, very good, because those guys are probably in touch with other people, former military, that they know, that perhaps even know that they've had NDEs as well. So it could grow that way.
I've really thought about, I think it will be important, maybe initially, to start a group that's only for veterans, because veterans and their spouses, they're not likely to want to share it with other people. They're very suspicious about not getting their benefits, being labeled as crazy, somebody finding out about it, and so they're very hesitant to speak openly. But if we started a group someplace where there was already a group, but we could have a special night for just service members, I think that might be the way to go. We're going to discuss it at the board meeting this February.
Excellent. So this could really work against them career-wise if they talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
What a shame.
They talk about their medical records being private, and having served in the military for 26 years and seeing the kinds of things that happen. If they went to a commander and tried to tell them about this experience they had where they saw their deceased relatives, I think it would, they're going to be sent immediately, probably to a psychiatrist. There just isn't a lot of understanding there. And unfortunately, it's not that there couldn't be, but, it takes some special training. It's not difficult. These people do not need a lot of therapy or anything like that. They just need someone to give them good information and support.
It sounds very much like the situation the military's run into these days with women trying to report rapes or molestations and being just shut down on that account.
I'm working with a case of that now, and I mean, they make it impossible for them. And sadly, some of these, when they happened years ago, I mean, they were just told not to. So now here they are, and with all these issues, no place to go with them.
Yes, that's one of the great things about how much it's been on television and on the radio, and because now people do feel a lot easier, I think, at least the general population, about bringing the subject up, talking to their families about it, and I think maybe their families are being a little more accepting.
I think that's true. When I started this work, there wasn't one book written. And then, of course, Raymond's came out, and now there are hundreds and hundreds of books written, books that have been written. Some good, some not as helpful as others, but nevertheless, there is a place for them to get information. And that's why the children are the other area where I worry, because they're dependent on their parents, and if their parents don't recognize what happened to them, it can be kind of isolating for them as well.
Sure. I think there's an interest, publishers themselves, I think, have been out recruiting, looking for writers to write about near-death experience. And we had a man who turned up at our last conference in Washington, D.C., who said he was there to learn about NDEs because he was going to write a book about it. Had never had an NDE and did not know anything about it, but he had a contract, and so he was going to write a book.
My, that's scary.
Crazy. It is.
Especially when we have such great authors as PMH Atwater and all the books she's written that are so helpful to people. and Nancy Bush and many of the other authors that we have and we know that are really, really helpful.
Oh, we've got some terrific authors, and, I hope to talk to all of them sooner or later, right here on NDE Radio. Our own IANDS bookstore offers quite a lot, for people who might be interested in reading more about it.
Yes.
They should go to the IANDS website.
We have a lot of articles. If you have just a basic membership, you can have access to a bibliography that has every article written up to, I think, 2011 now on NDEs. It's not to mention all the books. And at our conference, we probably have more books on near-death experiences than you would be able to get in any other place in the country at one time.
Yes. Traditionally, our conferences have whole large rooms devoted to the books that are available, books and CDs and videotapes sometimes.
Well, I think if anyone's out there that knows of a veteran or is a veteran and has had, or even thinks that they had something happen but they don't know what it is, I would really hope that they would call me or call the office and get in touch with me. We actually want to do a videotape just for veterans. And it would be very helpful to have actual veterans be able to speak to this.
Yes, to describe their NDE and also to describe how that NDE was received by the military itself, if they did talk to a chaplain or an officer about it.
Yes, I remember a young soldier years ago who, after he tried to describe, he had his arm detached in an accident. He was sedated for 3 days and sent directly to a psychiatrist. And he had a hard time with the military and rehab because after his NDE, he just wanted, this was sort of during the Cuban crisis and back in the day, but in rehab, he wanted to hug people. He wanted to tell them how beautiful things were. He wanted to talk about it. And, of course, they all thought he was crazy, to include the doctors. So he found me, and we did get some stuff straightened out. But
that reminds me of the attitude and the feeling that you get at the IANDS conferences. I mean, everyone wants to go around hugging one another. It's really amazing because it's like you've come home.
Well, it is probably the highest energy and highest love quotient, I guess, since most experiencers feel that's the primary thing that comes out of the experience. It is a very, very different and wonderful environment.
Yeah. Mention where we're going to have our next conference and when that's taking place.
It will be Labor Day weekend. It will be in California at Newport Beach, and we're finalizing the contract for the hotel right now. And we haven't put the program together, but we will be putting out a call for papers if there's anybody out there that would like to speak or want other information. You'll have to follow our website to get detailed information on the conference. That comes out around May, but it will be in California.
Well, Diane, thank you so much for being on the show with us and for telling us where things are with IANDS and with the work with the veterans. And I look forward to seeing you at our next board meeting.
Okay, see you next month.
Okay, take care.
Thanks.
And for the audience, we thank you for your interest in NDE Radio and the International Association for Near-Death Studies. For more information on the association, please go to our website, IANDS.org. And if you want to get in touch with Diane, you can email to IANDS as well. Thanks for listening. Join us again next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio.